Hi guys, so today I'm going to do a foundation review on the Giorgio Armani Lasting Silk Foundation. I'm using shade 5. I'm a little bit fairer than normal at the moment, so hopefully this won't be too dark. Now, when I went into store, I tried both the very famous Luminous Silk Foundation and the Lasting Silk. I found I much preferred the Lasting Silk. Normally I would be a big fan of a very glowy, dewy finish, and the Lasting Silk is definitely more of a satin finish, but it gives a slightly better coverage. I found it looked more like skin on me, whereas the Luminous Silk sort of sat on top of my skin. Now it is a silicone based foundation. You can just tell both from the very silky texture and also the fact that it has silicones and dimethicones in the ingredient list. So I'm going to prime half of my face with the Hourglass Veil Primer. I actually have this in the big size, but I prefer the pump bottle and this is better for traveling, so I just transfer it into this. Although this is the original one that I bought, it's got the tiny travel size, and you can just unscrew it and refill it, which is fantastic. I'm just going to pop out a single pump. This is my favorite silicone based primer. So I'm going to prime the left side of my face, which is the side that I've got some breakouts on today. Those pregnancy hormones have been running riot this week. Now, as always, I have previously moisturised my face and done my skincare routine. Now, this bottle's got the Giorgio Armani signature lid, which just pops off, and then it is a pump foundation, which is definitely one of my favourites. So, just popping this out, you can see it's quite a liquidy texture. I tend not to like to use a straight beauty blender on anything that is this much of a liquidy texture, as it just sort of absorbs it all. So today I'm going to start with one of my favourite brushes for applying foundation, the Hourglass Retractable Kabuki brush. It's a really densely bristled brush, which I just find fantastic. It picks up foundation just on the tip and applies it really nicely and evenly. So I'm just going to dip it in and then stipple it all over my unprimed side first and my primed side second. I mean, due to the amount of silicone in this, it still produces a really beautiful finish. It goes on and blends very easily, especially with such a dense brush. I've just put one light coat on there. It definitely applies a lot more smoothly over the primed side of my face, and I get a better skin texture. So we're just going to go back over the areas I get a lot of redness, just around my cheek and my nose. And I'm just going to add a little bit more over my chin, as that is where I'm tending to break out at the moment. Now you can see on the primed side, it's got a beautiful finish. It's not quite covering my pimples and my redness, but it's pretty good. On the unprimed side, you can see a lot more of my skin texture coming through. I feel like the primer definitely makes a big difference. Now I am a slightly different colour, so I'm just going to go over with a little bit of extra foundation down my neck. Right, now I'm just going to go in with my Nars Radiant Creamy Concealer in Vanilla. I'm going to dab this underneath my eyes, down the bridge of my nose, and I'm just going to use it to cover up the pimples that are breaking out and just around my nostrils. I've just got a little bit of a pimple coming through there as well. Now I'm going to use my fingers with this so I can make sure that I'm getting good coverage. After I pat all of the concealer around, I just go over it with a beauty blender, a damp beauty blender, just to press it in and blend it in nicely. Just gonna go back in a little bit more concealer over that big red angry pimple there. So I really like the finish of this foundation. It still has got a really beautiful glow to it without being too much. It's got a lovely skin finish to it. I much prefer the prime side to the unprimed side, so this is definitely a foundation I would always use primer with. Now I am just going to go over and set my foundation, although I love the look of it with no powder on top. Again, I am just using my Stila Everyday Illuminating powder in shade 30 Watts. I'm just going to go in with the MAC 135 big fluffy powder brush and dust it, tap it, and I'm just going to very lightly set this foundation. Because I like the finish so much, I don't want to change it by making it too powdery. I just want enough that my foundation and my concealer under my eyes will set nicely. I'm just going to add a little bit of extra down to the bottom of my face because that's where my breakouts are at the moment. So I'd like just a little bit more coverage there. This beautiful finish on the primed side. Still see my pimples coming through slightly just because I don't like too heavy a coverage. I still like that skin finish. You can see here, you can see my blemishes just slightly more than on my primed side. But it still gives me a really beautiful finish. I mean, even from relatively close up, you can't see any of my blemishes. It's just a really beautiful finish for foundation. So I'm going to disappear and go and do my makeup, and I will come back and update you later today on how this foundation has worn. But so far, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Right, now my partner and I are going out to a combined friend's birthday dinner tonight. So I've just changed my lipstick to a darker, more evening wear colour. I am wearing Photo by MAC, which is just a gorgeous, really dark brown. I'm wearing it on top of the MAC lip liner in Cork. This Photo lipstick, I absolutely love it. It's gorgeous, but if you don't wear a full lip liner under the lips, it tends to come off just a little bit patchy, but I think it's gorgeous. So I'm just here to actually update you on the foundation. I've been wearing it for 6.5 hours now, and I don't know what the lighting will be like when I come back in tonight after dinner. So I still think it's looking pretty good. It's definitely looking better on my primed side than my unprimed side. I am starting to notice the bumps in my skin are coming through quite a bit more strongly. It hasn't started to wear around here yet, although I am getting another pimple popping up. On this side, it's definitely started to wear around my breakout area, possibly because I have a tendency to touch it. And you can see it's just starting to melt slightly around my nostrils. It's also settled into the fine lines on my forehead. That's pretty common for me though. I do tend to sort of suck the foundation into my skin. So at this point in the day, just because my skin's so dehydrated, it's sucking the moisture out of my foundation and starting to look a little bit dry, I tend to apply some Fix Plus. Now, I don't find Fix Plus actually helps my makeup stay on any longer. It just adds that level of moisture that rehydrates my skin a little bit. So I do tend to keep it in my handbag in the mini size, and I reapply it throughout the day. I haven't today because I just wanted to see how this foundation would wear for you. It has worn pretty well. It hasn't gone too dry or cracked at all, but I am starting to feel that tightness that comes with dehydrated skin. Of course, because we're going out to dinner and I do want to look good, I've just applied some Fix Plus to rehydrate and give me that sort of glow that I like to have. So far as this foundation goes, I'm really happy with it. It has a beautiful satin skin finish, which I really like. It's worn very well throughout the day. It's only about a medium coverage. Oh, it builds to a medium coverage. I don't like to have all of my skin fully covered up, and I just really like that natural look. I just want to look like a slightly better version of me, not flawless. So if you guys have worn this foundation, you can leave a comment and let me know what you think. If you prefer the luminous silk, also leave a comment, because I'd really like to hear your thoughts on the comparison, and maybe I'll have to give it another go at some point. So I've just got home. It's been about 9 hours since I put my foundation on now. Pretty exhausted actually. Excuse if you can hear in the background the dryer going and my cat meowing. I think she wants to be fed. So I'm just gonna zoom in. Oh, lipstick all over my chin. So you can see now it's definitely worn off down the bottom. Got a lot of mascara fallout that's smudged in. It's looking quite a lot drier and more cracked now. You can see around my nostrils. It's just completely worn off, and to have a look at my forehead, it's definitely settled into the lines quite heavily. So at this point in the evening, I wouldn't say it's looking fantastic. To be fair, I haven't used a setting spray, so I feel like I got a good 6 or 7 hours out of it, and the last bit has just been being out in the elements, eating oily food. I'm still pretty happy with how this foundation's held up. For 9 hours with no setting spray, I think it's looking pretty good. I do think that I needed to spray some Fix Plus more often through it, just because of the dehydration. I find that silicone based foundations and primers don't do quite as well on my skin for the duration of how long they last. By the end of the day, they're looking pretty dried out, unfortunately.